Grave 42. I've always liked the quiet. That's probably why I took the job as a groundskeeper at Red Hollow Cemetery. It wasn't glamorous, low pay, long hours, but I didn't mind. Red Hollow was peaceful. Nestled on the outskirts of town, it had old stone archways, rusted gates, and gravestones dating back to the early 1800s. Most of the people buried here had long since been forgotten, their stories reduced to moss-covered names and crumbling epitaphs. We kept records, though, everything logged. Every burial, every movement, even the shifting of old stones. I worked with two others, Mary, the manager, who handled paperwork, and Clyde, a grizzled man in his 60s who rarely spoke. We all had our rhythm. Mary in the office. Clyde on the mower. Me, I walked the rows. The cemetery was split into 4 quadrants. But there was an unmarked stretch we called the shelf. It was a sloped patch on the northeast side, never used due to unstable ground. Or so I was told. One morning, I was inspecting quadrant 3 when I noticed something odd on the shelf. A fresh grave. Dirt unsettled, flowers neatly placed. No headstone yet, just a wooden marker. Number 42. I furrowed my brow. That didn't make sense. We hadn't had a burial in 2 weeks, and the last recorded grave was number 41, an older man named Eugene Francis. I walked back to the office and pulled the logbook. Nothing new. No mention of a number 42. No scheduled burials. I asked Mary. She blinked at me like I was speaking another language. "There's nothing on the schedule," she said. "Are you sure you saw a fresh grave?" I went back the next day, determined to prove it. And I did. But this time, it wasn't just a wooden marker. There was a headstone now. Smooth, polished granite. And it had my name on it. Lucas Grant. Beloved son. Loyal friend. Born 1991, died. The death date was blank. I felt my blood run cold. I hadn't told anyone I worked there, not even my landlord. I lived alone. No family. No social media. Just the occasional email to a childhood friend. There was no reason for my name to be there. I took a picture. When I showed Mary, she stared at me like I was crazy. "That's not possible," she said. "We don't just carve a stone for someone without paperwork. That's not how this works." But there it was. My grave. The next few days were surreal. Every time I checked on the headstone, it had changed. Slightly. The etching grew deeper. More detailed. The grass around it began to yellow, as if the ground itself was preparing for something. I started having dreams. Dark, suffocating dreams of being buried alive. In the dreams, I'd try to scream, but no sound would come out. Just soil in my throat, pressing on my lungs. Then came the visitations. It started with a voice outside my window one night, just whispering my name. Low and deliberate. The next night, the power flickered and I heard heavy footsteps across my roof. I live in a 1-story cabin, surrounded by trees. Nothing should be up there. On the 4th night, I saw a figure standing by the cemetery gate. Pale, motionless, facing my direction. It stayed there for hours. I watched from my window, barely breathing. But when I returned to the cemetery the next day, no footprints. No evidence anyone had stood there. Clyde noticed I was jumpy. One afternoon, he finally spoke. "You saw your grave, didn't you?" he asked, not looking at me. I didn't answer. "They show up about a week before," he muttered. "It's always a week. Like a countdown." I asked him what he meant. He looked at me, eyes hollow. "This place, it's not just for the dead. It warns the living, gives you time, if you pay attention." I asked him how he knew. He pulled a crumpled photo from his wallet. A woman, maybe mid-30s. Her headstone, he said, had appeared 3 days before she died in a car crash. She never saw it. I did. I buried her myself. I couldn't sleep after that. I checked the grave every few hours. The death date was still blank, but it felt closer. Like time was folding inward. Everything became strange. Clocks in my cabin stopped at 4:12 a.m. sharp. My phone alarm wouldn't ring. Birds stopped coming to the cemetery. And then, exactly 1 week from the first sighting, the headstone completed itself. Lucas Grant. Beloved son. Loyal friend. Born 1991, died October 14, 2025. That was tomorrow. I panicked. Called out sick. I was done with that place. I packed a bag, locked my door, and drove. Just drove. As far from Red Hollow as I could get. But every road led me back. Highway. Back road. GPS or not. No matter what I did, the next sign would always say Red Hollow, 3 miles. By dusk, I was back in front of the cemetery gates. And the headstone had changed again. It no longer said Lucas Grant. Now it read, Sarah Ellison. Brave heart. Fierce spirit. Born 1988, died October 14, 2025. I blinked. Sarah was my neighbor. A woman who often jogged through the cemetery paths. Friendly, always waved. I hadn't seen her in a few days. I ran to her house. Lights off. Door unlocked. I stopped counting how long I was stuck there. There was no sunrise. There was no clock that made sense. Inside the station, the wall had over 50 clocks on display, none of them showing the same time. I wasn't the one marked for death. I was the witness. Grave 42 doesn't just predict death, it tries to warn someone connected to the doomed. If you see your name, someone close to you is going to die, unless you stop it. And someone must take their place. Weeks later, a new grave appeared. Blank marker. Number 43. I check it every day. One morning, it bore a name. Clyde. But I hadn't seen him in days.